Before it gets too dark out here today, I'd like to share a time with you of when I was really discouraged. I was going to about four different churches at this time. Like every week, I was going to four different churches on 4 different days, and of course, on another church, I went twice a week. So 5 days out of the week, I was in church, and I really enjoyed having that fellowship. But during this time, I was having difficulty learning how to discipline my child. And the Lord told me to stop whooping her. It wasn't benefiting her at that point in her life. And the way that I would go about disciplining her was more out of frustration than for her good. And so I really didn't know how to discipline correctly without whooping or anything that was, not harmful to her. So I completely stopped most forms of discipline. And it was during that time that we were in a service, and she wouldn't sit still. I couldn't get her to sit still. And somebody, just ran up to her and snatched her up. So they snatched her up, and I knew that the way that they handled the situation would just make her lash out, because that was exactly why the Lord told me to stop handling her that way, because it would just make matters worse. And so I just kind of watched them, because I'm like, I know this isn't going to end well. And then, the leadership was like, please take her outside. So I did. And then I had a conversation with this individual, and they said, if you only knew how many people talked about you, um, the way that she said it is like, everybody has a problem with my parenting, right? And a lot of the times, like, I might even be speaking, in the front speaking, and it's very difficult to parent and to have a leadership role. And me being a first-time parent, I'm still trying to figure out the balance and how to do things in a way that is orderly, but also considerate of my child, where I don't leave her behind trying to get the 99, But still, during this time, I was trying my best. I was trying my best in all of the areas of life to draw closer to the Lord. And in this moment, I just felt defeated, because it was like, I'm just trying to do what I know not to do. I'm trying not to do that, and I really don't have instruction on how to navigate this situation. I know if I lean on my own understanding, I'm going to do it wrong. Eventually the Lord did correct me and say, there's other ways of discipline, and He showed me the best way for her in that time. But in this moment, I was so defeated, and I felt like the way that it was approached wasn't really considerate of me and my child. It was only considerate of the way that they felt like service was supposed to go, which I do believe in order. But also, I know that the Lord handles things in a way that is also considerate of the individual that He's talking to, and where they're at. So I tried my best to keep back my tears. I couldn't. I like ran to the car, ran home, and I ran to my bed, and I was crying, and I was just like, I don't know how to keep moving forward in this situation. I don't really even want to go and be in anyone's, congregation anymore. And the Lord reminded me of John 10, verse 10, where he says that the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. But he came to give life and life more abundantly. And so he was saying, in this situation, the enemy wants to destroy you. He wants you to quit. He wants you to give up. But I'm also here in this situation. I came to give you life and to give it to you more abundantly. I came to rectify this situation, to give you something good out of it. So I remembered in that moment that the Lord uses all things for good. And even if it was true that I needed to have better structure, as a parent, I didn't really know how. And I'm the type of person that you just can't tell me what to do. I got to get an understanding or it's not going to stick. So the Lord was walking me through that journey while I was also growing in leadership roles. And it was difficult, but in that time of crying and being upset about how I was being dealt with, the Lord reminded me that just because the truth is given and it's not given in love, that doesn't mean that it's worthless. Because if it's the truth, I can take it to Him who is love, and He can give it back to me in a way that is good and profitable, fruitful, in a way that I can digest it. And so I share that just to say to you, people may not give the truth the right way or at the right time. And, I feel like mostly it was the timing more than it was the way, because I was being dealt with about not handling her a certain way, at that time. So people may give you something that is harsh and true in accordance with reality about who you are or what you've done. But don't throw the truth out because it wasn't given in love. The truth is still the truth. So if they have a piece to the puzzle that is valid, you still take that piece and you go get the other side of it from the Lord. And I feel like a lot of times we talk about giving people the truth in love, and we give people that mandate, and it's good to give people that mandate, but it's also good to deal with the other side of that. What do we do when the truth isn't given to us in love, but it's still the truth? And the word in James 3 says that a person that doesn't stumble in their words, which means they give the truth in love constantly, that person is perfect. And they're able to bridle their whole body. They have complete self-discipline, right? So if we know that people aren't perfect, then we also need to give others grace. You don't know how much they had to go through just to be able to give somebody the truth. You don't know how much they had to go through just to obtain that truth. And if they offend you, the Bible says go to them, and so I did end up going to this individual after I dealt with it, after the Lord dealt with me thoroughly, because I didn't want to go and be rude and return evil to the individual who in their heart, they were doing the best that they could in that moment. But the biblical way to handle an offense, if somebody has given you something the wrong way, you take it to the Lord, and then you go and you tell that person where you feel like they have crossed, the boundaries, where they have transgressed. where you were offended. And that may be the most difficult part because it takes a lot of vulnerability to open up and to tell somebody why something hurt you, or to show them that you care enough that it was on your heart for days. You know, nobody wants to be vulnerable. And that's a problem because commandments that cause us to be humble and vulnerable are the ones that help us to have depth. Because you don't know anyone really until you know them in their vulnerable state. And you haven't given yourself to anyone really unless you have shown them your vulnerable side. So that is difficult, but it is possible. And the Lord can show us how to take our offenses to others, regardless of how they might respond after you take it to them. That's not up to you to decide how they're going to answer you once you take it to them, but it is your responsibility in the Lord to go and share the offense with them so that you can be at peace with God and possibly be at peace with that individual as well. You know, the Lord wants us to have unity, and He wants us to be at peace with each other, and He wants us to be at peace with Him. And if you can't establish, an agreement, the least that you can do is at least settle it in your heart that you made peace with God by seeking to pursue peace with them. But being offended makes it so hard to hear truth, even when it is given in love. So if somebody gives you the truth and they don't give it to you in love, and you get offended and you get bitter, then that will ruin it for the one that does come to give it to you in love, because you'll be offended. And the Bible says that a brother offended is like a castle with barred windows. Like, you have bars up, you've got your wall up, you've secured every opening to where nobody can get in. And that's why it's very important to take your offenses to the individual and to settle that offense. Because if you don't, then when the truth is given the right way, you won't receive it that way either. And it's necessary for us to receive truth because the truth makes us free. So even if they don't give it to you correctly, take it to the Lord, get it the right way. And if you have a hard time letting go of offenses, you need to pray to the Lord and ask Him for the strength to take care of your heart by dealing with that offense. The Bible does say in Corinthians, I believe 13, it says that even if you speak with all the knowledge that you can muster, but you don't have love, you're like a clashing cymbal. So if we don't speak the truth in love, then we become an annoyance. Nobody wants to hear anything that we have to say. And so being on the giving end, just be considerate. Ask the Lord how to give the truth, because you don't want to be out here shutting people down and keeping them from being able to receive the very truth that could save them because you gave it to them the wrong way at the wrong time and without consideration for them. We do want to please God by giving the truth, but we also want to please Him by caring for our neighbor and loving our neighbor as ourselves and giving it to them in a way that is necessary for them. Not to say that every time you give the truth, is it going to be nice, but it will be in the way that the Lord would give it, and that's what's important. God bless you.